Welcome to Journaling with Nature, the podcast for those who want to turn curiosity into wonder, a pencil sketch into a rabbit hole of discovery, a moment of stillness into a life full of joy. I'm your host, Bethan Burton. Let's open the pages of our nature journals and explore this world together. Hello, this is episode 193. It is such a joy to be here back with you today after such a long break from the podcast. I've been doing lots of different things, joyful things. I started a postgraduate program at the Queensland College of Art and Design, and it has been seriously the most amazing experience. I have been expanding my creative practice. I've been working in the print room there, doing monoprinting and linoprinting and exploring ideas and subjects that are very personal to me, and I'm going to write a blog post about this, so keep your eyes out for that. Now that the trimester has finished, I've got a bit more space in my week, and I'm very excited to start up the podcast again and finally release the interviews that I've recorded months ago, earlier on this year. Today's episode is a conversation with watercolor floral artist Sushma Hegde. Sushma is a self-taught artist who grew up in India and is currently living in a small town in Luxembourg. Sushma's creative practice centers around depicting colorful floral subjects in a loose and flowing style. In our conversation, we talked about Sushma's art practice, how she goes about capturing landscapes and floral subjects in watercolor, reaching a state of flow while painting, how to tackle complex subjects, and lots of other topics. Because this episode was recorded earlier in the year, there was reference to the Wild Wonder Nature Journaling Conference that at the time was coming up. Unfortunately, the live event has already passed, but at the end of this episode, I'll talk more about how you can get access to the recorded classes. So let's listen to the interview. Sushma, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me, Bethan.
So let's go back to your early connections, and I like to invite my guests to reflect on not only their early connections with nature, but their early connections with creativity as well. And I'd love to hear some stories about your young life and the ways that nature played a part in your young life, and then also just your creative beginnings.
So I'm from India originally. I live in Luxembourg now, and I grew up in India. And I mostly grew up in the big city, but most of my family lives in a small village in the north of Karnataka. And it's in the Western Ghats of India.
Wow.
So it's filled with forests.
Yes.
All of my relatives are farmers, so they have their little farms and surrounded by forests, no neighbors around. And most of my summer holidays were spent there. And I think nature had a big influence on me since then, without realizing. So when we were there, it was like, they don't have proper electricity, there's no TV. So you're forced to, play with nature and, find ways to play around. And my mom also played a big role in this, where she used to, teach us how to look at different flowers, how to look at our surroundings and, play with the mud that is around and just let us be, one with nature.
Yeah.
So that had a big influence on me. And creativity as well. So the women in my family, they are also farmers. They help with the farm, with growing of the vegetables and taking care of the cows. But they also spend the evenings doing something creative. So most of them have not studied much, but they find other ways to, keep themselves engaged. And for example, my mom collects all these little seeds from the wild or from certain fruits or vegetables, and she makes art out of it. So they've always, taken the time to relax and just enjoy nature and see the beauty of nature. So I think that had a big influence on me. as I grew up.
Yeah. And when did you know that watercolor was what you wanted to do? When did you start what you're doing now, these beautiful watercolor paintings?
So I never painted before as a kid. Maybe like in school, you have this drawing classes and just that, but I never painted before. And I moved to Germany around 10 years ago to do my master's here. And that's when I think after finishing my master's, I was looking for a job. And once I had the job, it was like in the evenings, I needed a way to, de-stress.
Yeah.
And that's when I started with watercolors. It just happened. It was not like a very planned thing.
Mm.
And yeah, I was hooked. I was looking at videos. I was just trying to play around. And it was just a thing that I did in the evening after work. And yeah, it was so addictive that I used to think only about that when I went to work as well
Yeah.
after a point. So yeah, that's how watercolors started. And I back then I didn't know what watercolors was or
Mm.
what was the difference between watercolors or acrylics or oils.
Mm-mm.
I was that like I had no knowledge about painting of any form. And but yeah, that's how it started.
And then because you're kind of self-taught and you learned through experimenting and painting and just learning on the go, maybe from video. Tell me about that sort of self-education.
Yeah, it started. I never thought of, making art as a full-time thing. It
Yeah.
never even occurred to me. And yeah, it was just a way to paint what I was seeing around me. So I was seeing a lot of flowers
Mm.
around me, especially when I moved to Germany. It was a lot to take in because there were so many unfamiliar flowers for me
Yeah.
that I'd never seen growing up in India, and the wildflowers and how the seasons change
Mm.
because I had not seen change of seasons
Mm.
that prominently before. And seeing that, in spring there's so many different flowers. Every week the flowers are different. There's so many different kinds of wildflowers growing everywhere. And that had kind of a big influence. And all I wanted to do was, learn how to paint what I'm seeing around me. And yeah, I would just like look up videos, and I even got myself an Instagram account.
Yeah.
Till then, I didn't even have that because I didn't see the reason to have one. And yeah, then I started following many people, and yeah, that's how it all started. And little by little, I could see my progress, and that just kept me inspired. And also, I started posting on Instagram. And as I posted, I was connecting with more
Mm.
people and, looking at other people and like talking to other artists. And that way, it became like I was part of that little community. And that also helped me, not give up on
Mm.
painting, because I used to try a lot of different things before, a lot of creative hobbies, but I would just try it once and give up on it. But this somehow stuck. And that was also because of, posting
Mm.
regularly
Mm.
and making friends and taking the time to comment on their posts and interact with them. So yeah, it was all part of that.
And then it just took over because you were doing, was it engineering you were doing, your field before?
Yeah, I was an automotive engineer.
Yeah, wow.
And yeah, I worked for 3 years and in Germany. But before that, I was also working in India. And yeah, I'd moved to Germany to do my master's, and then I was working. So it was nothing related to art. Yeah,
And now the art is your full-time job?
yeah,
This is
exactly. It
beautiful.
is my full-time job.
This is an amazing story. I want to hear. So now you're in Luxembourg, and I would love to hear about the types of nature that you have access to. What do you see when you go outside? You said originally you sort of grew up in a big city, and I'm wondering there in Luxembourg what the landscape is like. You talked about the wildflowers in Germany. Is it a similar landscape? Tell me about what you see when you go outside.
Yeah, it is similar. And we stay like in a little town
Mm-hmm.
where nothing much happens here. And right outside our window, we see rolling hills, we see cows grazing all the time. And it's a beautiful scene.
Mm.
And there are lots of forests around, lots of rivers and waterfalls. So It's just beautiful. So you have access to nature very easily in
Mm.
Luxembourg. And I love that. And it is quiet. And yeah, we really enjoy that.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so yeah, that is also a big inspiration. The flowers that grow here, the forests and the landscapes,
Yeah.
always motivating me.
Yeah. How did you come to florals as your main focus? I adore flowers. I think they uplift us. They're so important for all our different moments in life. We seem to want flowers involved in all our special moments. And I'm wondering about for you, how did it come that florals became your focus?
Florals never meant to be my focus actually. So it just happened. So the thing was, my goal even now and even back then was to capture what I see
Mm,
around me. So I wanted to learn to paint the landscapes that I was seeing around me, to learn to paint the flowers that I was seeing around me. And so I tried both, and I was, working on learning to paint landscapes and flowers. But somehow, just whenever I posted flowers, the response
yeah.
was like huge, and and also it became kind of a comfort zone for me
Yeah.
because I was repeatedly painting those flowers, and yeah, I leaned into the response that I
Mm,
got, and yeah, I said, okay, let me master this.
mm,
Let me try to hone this skill. And yeah, that's how florals became my main thing. But I enjoy painting landscapes
mm.
just as much. I
Yes.
still find them challenging, and it kind of drives me.
Yes.
Whereas florals are like my
Easy.
comfort
Yeah, yeah.
zone. Yeah, and not easy because there are some challenging flowers or
Yeah.
challenging angles, but still, it's like if I don't know what to do, I
Mm.
paint
Mm,
flowers.
mm, mm.
Whereas for landscapes, I have to think before, I have to plan, and yeah, all of that. But I enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, let's talk about landscapes because I wanted to bring that up with you because your landscapes also have this beautiful feeling to them, that, and maybe it's a function of the greenness or the landscape or the gentleness of the landscape where you are. But I'm interested in how painting landscapes helps you connect with your place. So, when you go out and you're painting, how does it make you feel? Does it make you deepen your connection with that place?
Yeah, I think, yeah, this is such a great question. And uh, one of the reasons that I paint landscapes is because it's like recording my memories in
Mm,
my sketchbook.
mm,
So it's not just about painting the scenery that I see, it's also putting in all the other feelings that I
mm,
get or the senses. You feel at that moment, like, the sounds, the rushing of the water or the wind, and yeah, all of that goes into that. Like
mm,
when you're painting, you are just switching off everything else, and you're like slowing down and just observing all the little things, and like the birds that are flying,
mm,
or what is happening to that one little plant that is swaying in the wind. And all these little things, I think we are recording in the sketchbook when we do this. And for example, when I look back at my Portugal sketchbook, when I look at it, I can hear the seagulls because,
yes.
yeah, because I was sitting there on the cliff and watching the waves and the seagulls. And even remember, like, I took some of the sand and like sprinkled it on my painting
I
while it
love
was
that.
wet. So there's a little bit of Portugal in that
Yeah.
painting from the sand. And yeah, I remember how harsh the wind was, and I was like trying to sit then quickly paint. So all of those memories just rush back when you look at those paintings, and I think that gives me the thrill to paint these landscapes. And I love being outdoors. I love traveling, so it's like combining two of my favorite things into one. So I just love that.
Yeah, I love that too. And I've seen you in one of your videos go down to the river or the water course and take some water for painting. And I love
Mhm.
that that also puts a little bit of the landscape into your painting when you use the water from the river or the sea to paint.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I try to do that as much as possible, or even like take a twig and try to,
Yeah.
draw some grass blades with it. I sometimes even take the dried flowers and like stamp it into my sketchbook. yeah, in that way, you're bringing a little bit of that nature with you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I love that.
And you're in the perfect location to access all different locations. You say you love traveling, but you're in the heart of it all.
Yeah, true. Actually, Luxembourg is located quite well like that.
Yeah.
It's close to all the surrounding countries and all kinds of landscapes. And yeah, I'm very lucky and blessed to be here.
When you go outside and you're ready to paint a landscape, what's the first thing that you do? Do you do an undersketch? How do you take it in? Do you have a viewfinder? What are some ways that people can start tackling sketching landscapes? Because it can be a bit of an intimidating subject for some people if they're not practiced at it.
So I do a bit of everything that you mentioned. First thing, usually takes time to find the subject, like what you want to paint, because sometimes you just have like the background, like you just have rolling hills, but you don't have a foreground. So
Yes.
you need to have a foreground, a middle ground, and a background. So you need to have like a tree. There's something in the middle going on, and something in the distance. That makes the painting look more pleasing to the eyes. So finding that takes a bit of time. And once you find that, what I generally do is I try to take a picture in my phone, and sometimes like I zoom in or zoom it out to see which details are not necessary to paint, because when we look at it, it's a vast area that you're looking at, and you have to bring down that to just how much fits in your paper.
Yes.
And yeah, that is the tricky part, because you end up painting the tree so big that you don't have place for the other things. And so when you take a picture, you know exactly what you want. You also know, okay, the mountain doesn't look that big compared to this. So you can do that comparison. And yeah, that helps me a lot. And I also use the viewfinder, as you said, also to limit how much I want to sketch. But I've started doing that only recently. And yeah, I do a little bit of a sketch, and while sketching I'm also like thinking a lot, because I think the early stages are very important, where you plan what you're going to paint
Yes.
and how you're going to paint, like which is going to be the darkest region, which is going to be the lightest, and which part has light falling on it, and which part is the shadows, so the warmer and the cooler bits. So all of that thinking goes on while I'm sketching. My sketch is um, pretty loose, it's not very detailed, it's just to block those regions. And yeah, that's it, that's the main thing, because after that it's kind of the easy part once you break all of this
Yeah.
down in your yeah. So yeah, after that I just get to painting and I completely zone out. So
That's
yeah,
really
I
good
love
tip. Yeah, really good tip to like do the thinking ahead of time and plan it out, know
that.
where the elements are, the foreground, the middle ground and the background, and then once you've got all that in, you can relax into it, enjoy the scenery.
Yeah, exactly. And you can also like think beforehand
Mm,
whether you want to include certain grass blades, do you want to include the other tree and this tree and all of that. And then you don't have to make those
mm,
decisions
mm.
later as you're painting. So that
Are
helps.
the things that you take outside with you? Do you have a field kit and a studio kit, or do they both go with you wherever you are?
No, I have a separate kit
Yeah.
for both. So I have a sketchbook and some art supplies in a very compact a pouch. It's right here. It's just a little pouch which has everything in it,
Mm-hmm.
and a few travel friendly brushes. And yeah, so I have it separate for my studio and for my outdoor sketching. It's a different set of art supplies. It's the same paints and same
Mm-hmm.
brushes, but just
More
two
portable.
copies
Yeah,
of
yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah. I think it's really good and motivating to have them separate so that you can just grab and go when you're ready to go out, and you don't have to, be cleaning your palette or to find things, and to have it just ready to go is really good.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes you tend to forget if you're just using the same for both. One time I went without my paints or my brushes. I took everything else. So yeah, and another time I didn't take the sketchbook. So what do you do if you don't have the sketchbook itself? So it's better to keep them separate.
Yeah. Well, let's go now to the studio and, oh, well, just to your floral work because it's so uniquely you. It's so recognizably you, is what I wanted to say. When I see one of your paintings, turn up in my Instagram feed, I know that it's you. And I'd love to talk about the floral thing. I wonder if you paint mostly from photographs or from fresh flowers. And yeah, let's get into your sort of studio practice.
I try to paint from fresh flowers
Mm-hmm.
as much as possible, but it's not always possible, especially in winter here. We have quite long winters. And so for that, I generally take pictures
Mm-hmm.
of the fresh flowers whenever I have them or whenever I see them. I try to take pictures of them in uh, a lot of different angles. So
Mm.
it's not just, the pretty side of it. And but I love painting from fresh or real flowers
Mm.
because you tend to see all the little details that you don't see in a picture.
Yes.
So most of the time a picture is very well curated and very neatly taken, and sometimes even edited to make the colors look rich. Whereas when you look at it in real life, you see for example, the wonky stem or the
Yeah.
wilted leaf, all those little details that you miss out, and you see like the flower drooping, or a petal has fallen off, all those little details. And when you try to bring that into your sketchbook, it adds that natural feel to your painting, and yeah, makes it more realistic in a way. So I definitely enjoy painting from fresh flowers.
Yeah. Do you have a garden? Do you have flowers in your garden, or where do you find the flowers that you love to sketch?
I do have a balcony,
Mm-hmm.
so I have a lot of flowers and a lot of plants that I've been growing in my balcony. I just love sitting outside and just looking at them. And yeah, so I try to grow a variety of flowering plants
Mm-hmm.
just so that I have constant inspiration. But also, we have a lovely flower market here in Luxembourg twice a week, like a farmer's market with lots of flowers. So I try to visit there as much as I can. Even if I'm not buying a lot, I try to go there to just observe and see what are the flowers of the season, what are the flowers that people are buying, and what are the color combinations that are going well now, like what are people leaning towards,
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. So yeah, I think I have inspiration like that around me as well.
What do you think it is about flowers that attracts people? I find myself every time I go to the farmer's market near me, I just want to buy flowers, and I just feel like filling my house with flowers is so uplifting. And I don't know, do you know why people love flowers so much?
Yeah, I don't know, but same here. I just love flowers. It brings me so much joy,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's like how can you not love flowers? They're so beautiful, and all flowers that
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's wonderful to explore, and it's wonderful even just um to see your work. And there's something that comes with your work which is just this sense of calm, and I'd love to talk to you about that, about the sense of calm that's sort of infused in your work. Does your practice bring you calm?
Yeah, it does. But thank you so much for saying that. A lot of people say
Yeah.
that when they look at my work, it brings them calm.
Yeah.
And I think it's such a beautiful, like such a big compliment, because in the end, you always think that you're making art for yourself. But if it's bringing calm to others, it's like it's greater than making it just for yourself.
Yeah.
You're doing something for others in a way, so that thought makes me so happy. And yeah, but I generally don't understand like how my art is bringing people calm,
Hmm.
because I'm just doing it, like I'm not thinking in that way and painting anything specifically for that. But it does bring me a lot of calm
Mm.
as well,
Mm.
when I'm painting and when I go into that flow
Yeah.
state. I just forget everything
Yeah.
around me. And it's like my mind switches off, all those thoughts and all the noise is just gone. And sometimes I'm in that flow state. It's like a trance, actually.
Yeah.
And, I forget to eat, I forget to
Yes.
drink, I forget to pee. And
Yeah. And the time just
that,
goes by in a like a river. It's crazy.
yeah, exactly. And I just love that feeling.
Yeah.
And I think that is one of the main things why I keep going back
Mm,
to it. Yeah, it's a meditative
mm,
process.
mm. I'm wondering, I'm reflecting on that. I mean, the flowers bring people calm, but I wonder if it's also the richness and the vibrancy and the variety of color. And I'd love to talk to you about color because it's obviously something that's important to you and your art practice. Tell me about your relationship with color, what it does for you.
As you said, yeah, the color is like it brings that kind of joy which you can't express. Uh, that too, when it's like a variety of colors
Mm.
within the same flower, you see so many colors.
Yeah.
Like within a purple flower, there's so many shades of purple
Yeah.
or so many shades of pink, and just those little details is just like when you stop to notice them. I don't know. It's so joyful.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just love trying to bring those colors
Mm.
into my painting. And yeah, I think colors are a big part of my what I do, and I just love that I'm surrounded by
Yeah.
colors and paints. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Was the color, like color theory and sort of deepening your understanding of color and color mixing, that must have been a big part of your sort of self-education as an artist. And I know that you teach color mixing in your course, but I would love to hear about your own sort of learning about color and how to mix colors in a way that's accurate and that sort of thing.
Actually, my journey with colors has been quite different from what I hear from other
Okay.
artists. I never thought of color mixing. I never thought about warm or cool
Mm-hmm.
colors. I just painted for the heck of
Yeah.
painting. I never gave it so much thought. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, you know what? I'm just painting. I'm not going to think this is a pink. I'm going to use pink,
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
just going to paint it.
Yeah.
It is not about which pink or which red should I use,
Yeah.
and none of that. And as I just, because at that point, it's when you're starting, I feel it's not so important
Mm.
to go into the
Mm.
technical details. And for some people, like especially for me, that would have been like so technical and so boring because my job was already technical. I wanted something that where I didn't
The
need to
opposite.
think.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. So I think after some time, after I was a bit confident with what I was painting, and I needed a way to improve on something, that's when I started looking about color and how I can make this better. And that's when I started reading about color theory and trying to understand what was I doing wrong and how can I improve it, and how does it make a difference
Mm.
when I change up the colors and things like that. And it was a lot of learning because color theory and all of that it's not simple
Mm.
and it's not easy to understand. But yeah, it took a while and I'm still learning. But yeah, I think I have some level of knowledge about it now where I can also teach others. And yeah, it was not something that I did instantly when I started
Yeah.
painting.
Yeah, I think I was a bit like you. I started and I was mixing, and sometimes I'd get it right sort of intuitively, and then sometimes I just was frustrated by not quite getting, especially around greens and dark
Mhm.
browns. I was like, oh, I know where I want to go and I just don't know how to get there. And so knowing a bit of color theory made it easy to get there. I would think, okay, this is the green I want and I've got these colors and here we go. Whereas before I could most often sort of make the right color, but I didn't know how and I didn't know why. It sort of just intuitively happened. But to know the theory helps you sort of be more precise and accurate in that
Yeah,
way.
very true. Yeah, very true. And that's what I tell my students as well. Like, initially, don't worry about all
Yeah,
these
I like that
technical things.
advice.
Okay, if you're painting with a green that looks fluorescent, that's okay.
Yeah.
And then you're painting, you're doing it. that matters a lot. And also like work on your brush techniques, like how you're holding it and how you're
Mm.
moving your hand, because your hand also needs to get used to all of those new movements. And later you can start thinking about water control, you can start thinking about colors, and yeah, which is the right color to mix with which, all of that comes later. So yeah, as you said.
Yeah, I would love to talk more about your actual practice with the florals, because I took your class at the Wild Wonder Nature Journaling Conference, and I was fascinated by the way that it's almost like a difference in the wrist movement, that you're doing these very simple strokes, but your hand is very it's moving around the page in a certain way. And I'm just fascinated by capturing because you can tackle any floral subject, and you have like a repertoire of strokes and putting them down in a certain way. I'm just interested in your practice and the strokes you use and the wrist movements and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So the thing is, what I mainly focus on is to use the full potential of the brush
Yeah.
we have. So most people just use like the tip of the brush, or you outline and then fill it in. Whereas I try to teach and I try to practice where I completely press the brush and
Yeah.
twist it and rub it and properly use the brush. And that I think has led to this eventually. And anytime I get a new brush, I try to fill pages just experimenting with what is the potential of this
Yeah.
brush, what unusual things can I do with this brush. And yeah, that's when I also practice how can I twist my hand in different ways, how can I hold it upwards or downwards or diagonally, and all of that.
Yeah.
And yeah, that it gives you unexpected results when you try to do that. And it doesn't have to just be brushes, you can try with twigs, you can try with different materials, and you get like all sorts of fun results which you can use in your paintings.
Yeah, because of you, I made a special I made a special trip to the art store because I use a filbert brush, which is kind of like a long, flat, round, kind of not a rounded tip, but like a curved tip. And
Hmm.
it's a unique brush that I hadn't used before, so I treated myself to a trip to the art store for one. And it's actually really kind of different from what I've always used a round brush, and the filbert, like you say, it's kind of it's got different potential, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I love using the filbert brush, especially for flowers,
Mm.
because it has that rounded end,
Mm.
which makes it so easy to paint the rounded petals.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, for a long time, I never used a filbert brush, just like you. And once I started using them, like it was a
It's
game
your
changer.
yeah.
Yeah. And now everybody associates me with the filbert brush, which is kind of nice.
um so I'm really interested when you say you get a bouquet of flowers and you pull out some specimens to draw from. I'm wondering, again, like the landscape, we talked about how your process and what happens when you sit down and what's the next step. And some flowers that you tackle are really quite complex, or they might be in a cluster. I'm interested in when you get a new subject, because you might have subjects like my favorite flower to draw is the nasturtium, and I've seen the nasturtium motif come up in your work too. And so you get practiced at doing that, you kind of know how to do it. But if you get faced with a new floral subject, how do you know what to do? How do you know what the first step is? Do you study and think before you put your strokes down? How do you tackle a new subject or a clustered subject, something like with a bit of complexity?
Oh, such a great question, and it really makes me think about my process. Um, and what I generally do when I get a flower is like lay it on a blank piece of paper.
Hmm.
So I also get to see how it will look on the paper, like for the composition, like
Yeah.
where I want to keep it, place it in my painting. And I notice the colors.
Mm.
So, first thing is okay, whether it's darker in certain places, lighter in certain places. Where is it dark? Where is it light? And also, like in the center of the flower, does it get darker there, or it's a totally different color? And things like that. And then also looking at the shape. So looking at the shape of the each individual petal and of the leaves and the stem. Like, is the stem very sturdy, or is it like bending, like what you said about the nasturtiums? So things like that, and how you bring the essence of that
Yeah,
into the
the
painting
essence. Yeah.
without adding too many steps in the process, like keeping it simple. And I try to practice quick movements with my brush to try to see if I can get the essence of that quickly in just a few steps. And then I start building on that. I try to practice it, seeing, okay, if I add a few more details to this, how will it look? So there's a lot of practice involved even before what I share on Instagram. I've paint pages and pages. Like sometimes my table is filled with the same flower painted so many
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
And like I go crazy obsessed over that one flower, just trying to paint it in so many different ways.
Yeah.
I love that part. I just love when
Yeah.
I get into that zone. And so that's the main thought process of looking at the shapes and how it's bending, what is the thickness of the stem, how the leaves shaped, and then the colors. And whether it's like, as you said, if it's a clustered thing, how do you focus on it without painting each and everything? Like, for example, when I'm painting hydrangeas or lilacs, I don't paint each and every one of those little florets, but you want to capture the feeling of that
Yeah.
clustered feeling in your painting without painting each and every one of them. And how do you do that? So I try to focus on like the darker and the lighter bits within that whole cluster, and just focus on those and just give the idea of that
Yeah.
cluster without actually painting that. So it takes a bit of practice, but it's doable.
I really like how you don't have to do an underdrawing, that you just know, and through repetition and practice and getting to know that particular element, but just to go in and also to trust that there will be things that you didn't expect, and that's a function of watercolor as well, I think. Can you talk a little about those little accidents or things that you didn't expect that come along with watercolor and with painting in this way, like without a drawing underneath?
So as you said, with watercolors, there's that unexpected element of it, especially when you paint wet on wet. You don't know where the paint flows in which direction, but that adds to the beauty of it.
Yeah.
That's what makes watercolors so beautiful. And sometimes you have to learn to lean into that. For example, when I'm painting lilacs, I try to do a first layer of just putting water, and then I just drop in colors and allow that to spread. And then I use that and I see shapes in that, and then say, okay, I can add one little flower here. I can add something else here. And that just makes it more intuitive and very like, not something that you're prepared for. You're just going in the flow.
Yeah, I wonder, because a lot of traditional botanical art is quite fussy and quite detailed, and I'm interested in artists loosening up. I think that loose work has a real joy that the perfect artwork maybe misses out on, and I'm wondering about that, sort of letting go of perfectionism and just allowing it to flow, and that's what watercolor does. But I'm interested in that, the freedom and the flow in your work.
So the thing is, when I paint flowers, I try not to sketch before. I do. I start with my brush directly. So that, as you said, it has a lot of possibilities. Like, you could go wrong. You could, even if one stroke goes wrong, the flower looks totally different. But it's part of it. And
Yeah.
I think taking off that in my mind, I had this limiting belief before that,
Mm.
okay, I can't ruin this piece of paper. It's an expensive
Yes.
watercolor paper. It has to be perfect. I have
Yes.
to paint well, and I have this limited time where I'm painting, so I have to make the most of it, and I have to come out painting a beautiful painting. But once I removed that out of my head, that paper is for me to paint,
Yeah.
and it is to be used. It's not to be kept as a precious item. And once I said, this is like disposable, I just paint,
Yeah.
I can put it away, I don't have to think so much about the paper. That I think that was changing for me when
Yeah.
I got into that mindset. And so it's like, okay, this went wrong, okay, I'll paint it again,
Yeah.
what's the big deal,
Yeah. Good.
so I think that getting into that mindset is so important,
Mm.
because most of my students, I see that, they're afraid to use their paints because
Yes.
they feel it's so
Yeah.
precious, or they feel like the time they come to paint, they have to have a proper end result, which they can show to others.
Mm.
But that's not the point. The act of sitting down and painting itself is already a big deal. Like, you have to celebrate that in itself, and not what you painted. It's about painting, the process, and how it made you feel while you were painting. So yeah, when you start thinking that way, you start loosening up as well. Don't put so much
Yeah.
pressure on yourself to make those perfect strokes. Or even if you spill some water on it, or your hand rubs on your painting while you're painting it all happens. But you just, okay, you think of it as a happy mess, and you just
Yeah.
go along with it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Looking at your studio, I can see behind you there's a whole series of floral paintings. Your space is very white and spacious, and it looks so uplifting to be in your studio space. I wonder if that's still a deliberate choice, that you'll keep it like bright and light and happy.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, so when we found this place when I say we, it's me and my husband.
Yeah.
It was like we looked for a lot of places,
Hmm.
and this was the house that we really loved because of these big open windows,
Mm.
and the big balcony with these glass panels. And I knew that, okay, this
This is
part is
it.
going to be my studio.
Yeah.
So yeah, that light plays a big role
Yeah.
for me, especially in Luxembourg. It rains a lot.
Okay.
It's very gloomy most of the year, and so having more light
Mm.
is so important, especially now that I work from home. Whereas before, I had, like, I had more, I used to socialize more, I had colleagues, I had people around me all the time. But now it's just me painting and just being here, and most of the time it's online, but you still don't feel that connection
Yeah.
that you feel in person. And so light is important for me.
Mm.
If it's a gloomy place, I will feel more, like I'm disconnected from everything else. So yeah, in that way, I just love this whole thing. So I try to keep the space also open and not too cluttered.
Yes.
It does get cluttered with all the art supplies that I have, but yeah, I try to keep it accessible, because sometimes I like to sit on the floor and paint,
Yeah,
sometimes
wonderful.
here. Yeah, so
Do you,
yeah,
so you, on a regular day when you tackle a painting, do you have your supplies flat on the table? Do you have an easel? Do you stand? You said you maybe go on the floor. Tell me about the way you're positioned and the way your paper is positioned, and how you go about it.
so I have a flat table,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a uh, sit stand
Yeah.
table.
Yeah.
And so most of the time I stand and paint. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know why, it just feels more free when
Yeah.
I'm standing and painting, because I can just move around. And all my the classes that I've taught lately over the
Yeah.
last few years have all been where I'm standing and
Really?
teaching.
That's so
The
cool.
students, yeah, and the students ask me, "Are you standing the whole time when you're teaching, like 2 3 hours?"
Wow.
But yeah, I'm just used to it
Yeah.
now.
Wow.
Uh, I think the hands feel more
Yeah.
free when I'm standing and painting.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I try to stand. I also sit. and paint as well, but not so much lately.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I like to sit in the balcony and paint as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
on the floor, I enjoy that as well. So yeah, I don't have an easel specifically for home for painting. When I go outdoors, I do take my easel and my tripod and set it up and paint, because you can't always sit
Mm.
and paint when you're outdoors, because you're blocking the view if you sit down
Mm-mm.
sometimes. So yeah. Uh,
Oh, that's wonderful to hear you say that and to imagine you standing for the classes and moving around your studio. I'm interested in your choice of watercolor paper because, yeah, you mentioned like sometimes it can be intimidating. You go to the art store, you buy, a $10 piece of paper. And I'm interested in, do you like hot pressed or cold pressed? And yeah, your favorite papers. And it's an interesting trade-off, isn't it? You have to get the one that feels good, that the watercolor performs the way that you want, but you also don't want to buy this precious thing that is too precious to use. So I'm interested to
yeah.
know about your favorite paper and those details.
So I like using cold press paper
Mm-hmm.
because it has a little bit of a grainy texture to it,
Yeah.
which I really enjoy, and it allows the colors to move well. And I generally use Fabriano Artistico 100% cotton
Mm-hmm.
paper, so for a lot of my paintings. And I like the 100% cotton paper because it holds a lot of water. So
Yeah.
I can go repeatedly add layers if I want, or if I want to do a wet on wet wash, I can do that. But when I'm outdoors, I paint. I don't use 100% cotton paper. The sketchbooks that I have, generally they are cold pressed, but they are mixed. They have
Mm.
cotton and cellulose mixed paper, and yeah, I use a Hahnemuller watercolor sketchbook when I'm painting outdoors mostly, but I try to experiment with other sketchbooks as well. And I like that, they dry faster when
Yes.
I'm outdoors, so I don't have to just stand there
Yeah.
waiting for it to dry.
I really enjoy cold press paper too. I think it changes the experience, and it's interesting, when you're choosing watercolor supplies, if you have to choose one quality uh, supply, I would say paper. It makes the big difference.
Yeah, I 100% agree with this. It's paper is very, very important,
Mm.
more than the paints.
Yeah.
I think paper and brush are
Mm.
two very important things for watercolors. And yeah, you were asking about, like, for beginners, what should they choose?
Yeah.
This Canson Montoile paper is actually good. It's quite affordable, and you get them in sketchbook form as well.
Mm.
So
Good.
I love experimenting with that, and they're quite good paper, especially for beginners.
Yeah.
But then I would also suggest everyone to try 100% cotton paper, because it is a game
It's
changer.
a different experience, isn't it? Just the paints
Yeah.
behave differently. And as you said, you can layer wait for it to dry and then layer the next layer, and it just behaves a whole lot differently.
Yeah, and because it stays wet for longer, you have more time to play around. Like, for
Yes.
example, if you're painting a sky, it's like all of it stays wet, so you can go back and add few more colors. It
Yes.
doesn't unevenly dry. So I just love that.
Yeah. Okay, now tell me about your beautiful book, Wildflower Watercolor, The Beginner's Guide to Painting Beautiful Florals. How did this come about? And tell me about the writing experience and the whole story behind the book.
Okay, so Wildflower Watercolor is, I wrote the book along with Page Street Publishing, and they contacted me
Wonderful.
and asked if I would be interested in writing a book. And after a lot of video calls and communication, we decided, okay, this is what I want, and this is what I want to write a book on. And yeah, the whole writing process was hard. It took a long time. It took almost a year, the
Yeah.
whole process, because a lot of people are involved. And even though I'm writing the book, there is a copywriter. There are a lot of people, looking at the formatting.
Mm.
Then there's a graphic designer. So the whole experience was nice, and a lot of learning for me. And yeah, once the book came out, the response was amazing, something that I did not expect, and I was so like we were so happy with it. The book has been a bestseller
Wow.
since its release last since 2 years since its release. It's among the top five bestsellers under painting category on Amazon. So
Fantastic.
yeah, people love the book, and I'm so happy that people love the book because
Yeah.
I took so much time, and it's the book is like very dear to me because I poured everything into that book. And yeah, I'm just happy that people are making use of the book. And every time I see somebody painting from the book, it's just like, they're looking at the same thing, but everybody's painting is so different. And
Yeah.
I always find that so fascinating because each person has their own inherent style, but we always try to seek and find, how do I find my own style? But
Yeah.
we already have that within
Yeah.
us. And when I look at these paintings, everybody is painting from the same book, they're looking at the same flowers, but
Yes.
in the end all of their paintings look so different. And
Mm.
I love observing that. I love seeing, oh, okay, this person paints the leaves in this way. It's very interesting. So that brings me so much happiness just looking at that. And yeah, I'm very grateful for the response to the book. The book is now also available in French, German,
Oh,
and
wow.
Spanish.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so it's reaching more people, and more people are painting, and yeah, that makes me so happy.
That is so cool to see all the different people doing it, probably from different parts of the world as well. So in the book, you have different instructional pages for different flowers. Is that right?
Yeah, so the book is a beginner's guide to painting wildflowers, and there are 30 different wildflowers that
Wonderful.
you can paint step by step from the book. And at the end, I also teach how to bring these flowers together
Mm.
to bring it into a bouquet. But that part is not so detailed, but the main focus is on painting individual flowers. And these are wildflowers that we generally see around us here, especially in Europe or in North America. And yeah, so a lot of the inspiration was for me was the flowers that I saw around me. And yeah, that's how the book happened.
And you've also got your own course. You've got a course called Watercolor Floral Sanctuary. And when I read about this, I thought about your work and how it makes me feel when I'm looking at it, and that sense of calm that we talked about. So sanctuary just feels like such a lovely descriptor for this course. Can you tell me about the course and what someone will find when they buy the course and take part?
So yeah, it is a sanctuary actually now because it has such lovely people. Like we have our close knit community now
Yeah.
of people who are very serious about learning to paint, and just seeing them grow over the course has been like it's been a blessing. Just watching the transition and the transformation. So yeah, about the course, it's an 8-week program where I launch this program only once a year. And during that 8 weeks, I mentor the students where I take them from the very beginner level of painting to we slowly take it step by step over the 8 weeks and go to a slightly advanced level by the end of it. And not everybody takes the course within 8 weeks because it can be too much.
Yes, yes.
And so people take it over months. Some people do it exactly within the 8 weeks, and they are like so dedicated. And sometimes I'm in awe just looking at
Yeah.
how dedicated the students are. I'm like, if I was this dedicated, maybe, I would learn so much more now. But yeah, some of them take it over many months. Some of them also take it over a year. So because all the lessons are recorded, but I also do like live Q&A
Oh,
sessions
great.
each week. So I support them and they show me their work. I critique what they've done and tell them, how they can improve on that. And yeah, I'm there full time during those 8 weeks, supporting them. And we have like our community group where we interact, and it's become such a lovely group now because the 8 weeks, it generally, I do this in September.
Mm-hmm.
I started in September, but even now in May, the group is like so active. Everybody's painting, they share their work, and the others critique and they say, okay, you can do this better or try. They challenge each other,
That
which
is
is so
so
lovely
good.
to watch them.
Yeah.
Have you tried painting this flower? Just I challenge you to paint this flower. So yeah, it's a very lovely sanctuary,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah.
How
So
wonderful.
yeah, that's yeah. I love this this thing. It's my baby.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
this 8 week program, and yeah, as I said, I want to go all in into it during that time, and yeah, I open it in September this year as well.
It's wonderful to hear you talk about it. I can feel how important this is for you, and yeah, just supporting your students and watching them learn and grow and support each other.
Yeah, I think it's also because I am also a self-taught artist,
Yeah.
so I can, put myself in their shoes and see the struggles, and also, understand what they are, always the mindset or the
Yeah.
mental game that goes on when you're painting, because a lot of the painting skills that we learn has to do with what we think or what we tell ourselves.
Yes.
And as somebody who has, tried to cross those barriers
Yeah.
but also keeps having those thoughts constantly,
Yes.
it's kind of like you get where they're coming from.
Mm-mm.
So
So you can
yeah, and
support them from your own experience.
yeah, I think so. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that kind of makes it also for me easier to relate to what they're struggling with.
Yeah. So you're going to be teaching at the Wild Wonder Nature Journaling Conference again this year. I'm excited to see
Mhm.
that.
Me too. I'm very excited about it.
Yeah. Tell me about the experience of teaching at Wild Wonder. It's a big thing.
Yeah, it's so well
Yeah.
organized, so nicely done, and what they do to the community is just amazing. And I'm just like so honored to be a part of it. This will be my third year being a
Wonderful.
part of Guide Mentor, and yeah, I think Beth is such a lovely person, and I just love that they have thought through everything, so you don't have any questions. They've already answered all your questions
Yeah.
for the artist, for the students, and yeah, how well it's organized, and also I get to learn from so many different artists who I was
Yeah.
introduced through this program. So yeah, that is also so great that I can watch all of these other lessons and learn from all different kinds of nature enthusiasts and so many different forms of art. So yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that.
This is an amazing thing about it that everyone, like you say, everyone comes at things differently, but when there's so many different presenters, each one has their own take and each one has their own style, and you can dive into
Mhm.
details of things you would never have thought about before.
Exactly, yeah. And even like it's also a learning for me about how to teach,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you also see the different ways, like how people make it, how they keep the students engaged,
Yes.
and how they simplify certain things. So it's a great learning platform for me as well.
Amazing. I can't wait to take your class this year. Sushma, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. It's been amazing to talk to you and dive into your practice and learn all about the way that you tackle your projects and flowers and landscapes. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been so nice talking to you, and going into detail about
Yeah.
all these little things that most people don't think of. And yeah, you made me think as well about my process and about where all of the inspiration is coming from. And I just loved this chat. So thank you so much for having me.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Sushma. It was such a joy to chat with her about flowers and watercolor, which are two of my very favorite things. In the show notes for this episode, you can find a link which will take you over to Sushma's website where you can sign up for the waitlist to be notified when she opens enrollments for her 8-week course, Watercolor Floral Sanctuary. Also, if you haven't already and you'd like to sign up for the Wild Wonder Nature Journaling Conference, you can access a video pass which gives you access to all the recorded workshops that happened during the live event earlier this year, and that includes Sushma's class. So go to the show notes and you'll find a link that will take you there. Thank you for listening and thank you for being patient with me as I find a new rhythm for this podcast. I'll be uploading more frequently over the next few months in the uni holidays, and I've got some really fun interviews already recorded which I'm really excited to share with you. See you next time.